Welcome. So from the last video we understand the basic principle and goal, a grid-based 2D procedurally generated underground world. But how do you actually do that? I need to represent the world in code. There's so many ways to achieve this, but I chose to use a two-dimensional array of blocks, the smallest unit of measurement in the world. A block could be anything, a string block ID, an enum, a class. As long as you have the information you need for your game, it works. I chose to create a block class so that I could put whatever relevant information I wanted in it. From there, I need some information about the world to do something. I use a 𝐕𝐵2 int to represent the world size in x and y. Because the world is grid-based, every block is the same size, so it keeps it simple. I also added a world seed so that the system could use deterministic randomness, or in other words, worlds with the same seed are generated identically. That handles the bare minimum to represent a grid-based world. I created a world generator class to handle creating the block array and populating each position with a block. To render it, I created a script to receive that array of blocks and draw the appropriate tile on the tile map at the correct position. I've never used it before, so I'm trying the Unity tile map system. Seems to be getting the job done without any headache.
Unlike my crippling addiction to starting a new game project with the thousands before it fade into the forgotten void.
I also needed to handle communication of this data between classes, so I created a controller called World Overseer. This acts as the orchestrator to initiate generating and rendering, and passing all that info. It's the access point for information about the world and interacting with its data. It works great, but all I'm creating is a solid, boring world.
Just like all the rest of my games.
Time to add some intrigue. As a test, I'm going to be using a technique called Cellular Automata to add caves. Cellular Automata is a huge world of its own, and I cannot do it justice. But the general concept is this. You have an array of cells, and based on certain rules, that array changes each cycle. Usually it's rules based on the neighbors of a cell. By far, the most famous example of this is Conway's Game of Life. With these simple rules, you can create some very neat outcomes. The technique I'm using only works if there's already empty spaces in the world. So
I started blasting. Bam!
I created a function to loop through the blocks in the world, and using the world seed, remove that solid block or keep it. From there, I apply Cellular Automata. For each block in the world, I'll check its neighboring cells. If the neighbor is empty, it's ignored, and if it isn't, it's counted as a neighbor. If there's more than a threshold, for example 4 neighbors, that block is made solid. Otherwise, it's made empty.
Master Skywalker, there are too many of them. What are we going to do?
By applying this process to each block in the world, you get some caves. Pretty cool for such a simple rule set. If I run that algorithm multiple times, it'll continue to smooth out the caves. This isn't terrible, but it's not a good enough system to build a world off of.
What do you think, Antonio?
Currently, performance is poor because everything generates on the first frame and everything is always loaded. I've actually already improved this, but it'll have to be covered in the next step. I'll cover how I divided the world into chunks, handling world and chunk space transformations and generation. Thanks for watching, see you on the next step. So I created